The moon has something we call phases, which means that it appears to change shape a little bit every night.
So here we have our worksheet on the moon phases. And we're going to color in using both a yellow and a black where the moon has the light reflected on by the sun and where the moon has the shadow cast on it by the earth. Let's start with the new moon, which is actually where the earth has its shadow cast on it completely. So this moon is pretty much all dark.
New moon is the only time in the lunar cycle when a solar eclipse could happen, because it is the only time that the moon is between the sun and the earth.
As the moon comes out from behind the earth, less of the earth's shadow is cast on it, and we start to see some of that sunlight reflected off just part of the moon that's visible. This is known as a waning crescent. Some people call this the man in the moon shape, the crescent moon. Think of the French pastry called a croissant. That means a crescent shape. So that part of the moon showing, whereas this part of the moon is still in shadow.
After a few days, once the moon has moved along a little in its orbit, we can begin to see some of the moon's day side from Earth. What we see is just a thin slice of light called a crescent. We call it a waxing crescent because waxing means growing. The crescent moon will grow a little bit thicker every night until it reaches the next phase.
Here we have more of the moon visible. More of the sun's light is being reflected off of the surface of the moon. Sort of a half a moon, known as a 3/4 in this case. And then this part here being in shadow. Now it says 3/4, that means 3/4, that means that only 1 out of 4 parts of the moon is showing. But remember, the moon is a round ball. We're looking at a flat circle, so we're actually only looking at 2 out of the 4 pieces. There's 1, 2, and then if this was a round ball behind it, we'd see part 3 and part 4 also in darkness. Here we have more of the moon showing again, where the sun is reflecting its light off of the surface of the moon. And so we see more of the moon and less of the Earth's shadow here. This is known as a waning gibbous moon. And here we have probably the most common moon that gets recognized, which is the full moon. And that's where we can see the full round circle of the moon reflecting the sun's light. So we color all of that one yellow. It's the opposite of the new moon.
The full moon. A full moon is the biggest, brightest, and easiest phase of the moon to see. The moon rises at sunset and is up all night, so if you are outside and the sky is clear, it's hard to miss.
Here we have the moonlight, or the sun's light being reflected off the moon, starting to become lessened and covered in shadow by the earth on this side.
The waxing gibbous. Gibbous means humped or swollen, and again, we call it waxing because it grows thicker every night until it reaches the next phase, the full.
Now we're back to half a moon again. We call this the first quarter. Again, remember, there's actually 4 sides of the moon. We're only looking at 2. 1, behind 2, behind 3, and then this side, 4. And this side of the moon is now dark with the Earth's shadow. If we look back up to the first moon, you can see that they're opposites from this moon.
First quarter. The first quarter moon is sometimes called the half moon because it appears to us that half of the moon is illuminated. But it is called first quarter because the moon is 1/4 of the way through its cycle. As the days pass, the moon continues to grow, soon entering its next phase.
We now have a lot less moonlight showing. This is a waxing crescent. It's the opposite side from the waning crescent. And again, we have a lot more of the Earth's shadow being cast here. And there we have the phases of the moon.